I think your leadership has had an effect on this team so far during the preseason.
I just think it has its effect on knowing that we're able to win every game. And that's just how I think as a quarterback. I think every time I step on the field, I can be a difference maker.
The Tennessee Titans were the worst team in the NFL last season, and this might be an absurd question to ask, but for this final AFC South preview, talking about the Tennessee Titans, we're going to ask if the Tennessee Titans can sneak into playoff contention in the 2025 NFL season. This team had the #1 pick for a reason. The awful quarterback play from the likes of a Will Levis, Mason Rudolph. It was just an overall terrible season from the offense, ranked 26th in total yards per game, 27th in passing yards per game, and also their overall offensive core ranked dead last in the NFL. The team had no direction, and under rookie head coach Brian Callahan, a lot of things looked shaky, but that was expected because the team had no foundation besides the defense. The defense was the only encouraging part about the Tennessee Titans in 2024, as they actually had the #2 total defense in the league and the second ranked passing defense in the NFL. But alongside of those stats, when you have an offense that doesn't help, your defense ends up being the 30th ranked scoring defense and 26th ranked rushing defense. So it shows that they had a lot of upside, but when your offense isn't doing anything and your defense is constantly being thrown back on the field, fatigue starts to set in and they can't carry. But now for the 2025 season, they have a quarterback that they drafted #1 overall in the 2025 NFL draft, Cam Ward out of Miami, who looks to really set the tone and be the next quarterback to have a phenomenal rookie season following the likes of a Jaden Daniels and a CJ Stroud in 2023. Similarly, also to the quarterbacks like a CJ Stroud and a Jaden Daniels, Cam Ward played 5 years of college football, 2 years at Incarnate Word, 2 years at Washington State, and then last year in 2024, as we all know, he played at Miami where he finished 4th in Heisman, and he had a phenomenal quarterback season. He was a top-ranked quarterback going into this NFL draft for a reason. You saw it on full display, his escapability, his cerebralness as a pocket passer, to be able to step up in the pocket to make plays, to extend plays as well. Maybe not the most athletic quarterback, but he's able to extend plays in terms of throwing on the run, being extremely accurate and being extremely poised as a quarterback. And I think that's a perfect thing and the perfect jolt that this Tennessee Titans offense needs, because they were the definition of stagnant and archaic in the 2024 season. Last year at Miami, Cam Ward had a completion percentage of 67.2, throwing for over 4,300 passing yards, 39 passing touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. Extremely efficient, and also had a 172.2 quarterback rating, and nearly had Miami making the college football playoff last season, despite for a couple of losses. But the type of year that he has, he's building a lot of momentum, and I say comparably to a Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud in terms of experience that he's had. If you look at a lot of these recent quarterbacks stepping into the league, the most successful ones have played a lot of college football. Even last year with the Bo Nix, he played a lot of college football too with his years at Oregon and Auburn, and he had probably the second best quarterback season last year after Jaden Daniels. And I think that bodes well for Cam Ward, who's continued to get used to really figuring out this new Brian Callahan offense. They've done stuff in training camp and throughout the offseason, shortening the clock to recall plays and things of that nature to make sure the offense is ready. Also, Brian Callahan has made sure that his defenses are sending a lot of simulated pressures and blitz to see how he can handle those type of different looks from a defense as a rookie quarterback, because teams are going to be testing that off rip for him. And I think that poise is something that we saw from a Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud. We have the potential to see that from a Cam Ward, and that might be the most important trait from not only a rookie quarterback, but a quarterback in general that you want to build your franchise around. And Cam Ward can certainly embody that. The Titans were so atrocious last year, we really didn't even get to appreciate the type of weapons this offense actually has. And a Calvin Ridley, I know maybe he's not like a top 10 receiver, but I think you can make the argument that he's a top 15 to 20 receiver. And he was very explosive for the Tennessee Titans in his first year last year. After coming over from divisional rival, the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2023, last year in 2024, Ridley signed a 4-year, $92 million deal with the Tennessee Titans, including $50 million in guaranteed money. And last year he had a really good season. He had 64 receptions for over 1,000 receiving yards, averaging almost 16 yards per reception
and 5 receiving touchdowns.
I think that he's going to be the perfect receiver for a Cam Ward. Maybe he's not a wide receiver one on other teams, but I think that he'll be a player that's even elevated with a Cam Ward, because like I said, Calvin Ridley, he played with quarterbacks like a Mason Rudolph and Will Levis last year. So the only way is to go up with a Cam Ward. And then even if you look at other receivers that they've added in free agency, Tyler Lockett, who played his first 10 seasons with the Seattle Seahawks. I know his stats have kind of taken some dips the last 2 years. 2023 only had 894 receiving yards, and then last year he had 600 receiving yards after having 4 consecutive 1,000-yard receiving seasons from 2019 to 2022. But I think that he's going to be a great veteran to add to that receiving room and locker room to be another weapon for Cam Ward in the offense. So Tyler Lockett being there, I think that's a solid player to help. Then we know that the Titans, they signed running back Tony Pollard last year in the 2024 offseason to a 3-year, $21.75 million contract with $10 million in guaranteed money. Shout out to Tony Pollard. He was a great complimentary back with the Dallas Cowboys, and then in his last 2 seasons with Dallas emerged as showing that he could be a potential running back one. Last year, it was a decent season for him as well too. Like I said, it just got overshadowed by how awful the Titans were last year, but even last season, Pollard had 260 carries for almost 1,100 rushing yards, averaging 4.2 yards per carry, and had 5 rushing touchdowns, and he also had 238 receiving yards on 41 receptions. No touchdowns though, but he's able to be a running back that's able to chip and help pass pro and also be solid out of the receiving game too. And he's not necessarily a power back, he's more of a crafty running back that's more flashy, but I think that he's a running back that'll be able to be utilized well in this offense. And they're going to need him in that running back room because now it looks like Tajay Spears is going to miss the first 4 weeks and be on injured reserve after he suffered a high ankle sprain earlier this month and was in a walking boot. So Tony Pollard, he's going to have to alleviate a lot of that pressure, and then hopefully after week 4 or 5 or something like that, Tajay Spears is going to be able to return, and then they're going to be able to have a 2-back system that'll be able to keep both of those backs fresh. But he has some weapons certainly. Also, you talk about a Van Jefferson as well too. Maybe not the most flashy receiver, but that's another person that in that room that can be utilized in the offense. Not to mention they're also hoping their offensive line can be improved. According to PFF, they have the 24th ranked offensive line going into this next season.
The Titans do have offensive line coach Bill Callahan, though, father of head coach Brian Callahan, and Bill Callahan is known to be one of the best offensive line coaches of all time. So that's an advantage for that roster on the O-line to help in protection.
But they did spend draft capital on their offensive line last year as recent as 2024. For example, drafting right tackle JT Latham out of Alabama in the 2024 NFL draft. They're hoping that he's going to be able to take another step in his second season. They have people on the offensive line like a Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle. They also have, I think, an underrated weapon in Okonkwo at the tight end position. I know I sound weird saying his name. It's all good though. But last year he had 70 receptions for almost 500 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So I think that if you look at comparably to what Jaden Daniels did with the Washington Commanders last year and the type of weapons that he had, I know they had Terry McLaurin. You can also make the argument that, I know Terry McLaurin, you can make the argument that he's probably like a top 10 receiver around that level. But Calvin really, he isn't that far behind him. And I mentioned that as a direct comparison in saying that no one saw the Commanders making the NFC Championship game last year. And I'm not saying that the Titans are going to be doing that at all. Don't think I'm saying anything like that. But to say that this team might not be elevated by Cam Ward, I think that's kind of crazy to say because they certainly can be, because the type of quarterback play that this team had last year, I cannot emphasize enough. It was awful. It was so exactly like shite. If Cam Ward can have any type of similar success to what Jaden Daniels did, CJ Stroud did in 2023, you know, having, for example, even a Bo Nix type of year, 29 passing touchdowns and only 12 interceptions, something like that, that could be enough not only to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, but that could be enough to have the Titans maybe not make the playoffs, but be in the hunt and be close to being there. And then in 2026, having a year to go full-fledged and potentially make the playoffs and even further develop a team with a quarterback on a rookie contract. But with Cam Ward, I think that this team will be better, and I think actually everyone in the league should expect that as long as everyone stays healthy with him at the position. But before we further talk about the Tennessee Titans in this last AFC South preview and discuss why they could be in playoff contention for the 2025 NFL season, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and X at Swaggy Russ, and TikTok at Swaggy Russ02 for shorts, reels, content, all things of that nature. This is the last video in the AFC South. Then we're moving on to the NFC North. Then lastly, we'll be moving on to the AFC North. And before you know it, the NFL season will be here. We're 8 days away at the recording of this video. Let's get it, guys. But with all that being said, let's answer if the Tennessee Titans can sneak into the playoff contention in this 2025 NFL season. So their defense is something that I talked about as being one of their strong suits that can continue to elevate in this season. And let's talk about it real quick. Everyone wants to talk about that little alleged scuffle that happened between Jeffrey Simmons and Cam Ward during practice. And that's something that you embrace and want. And honestly, that challenges your team to be greater. But let's talk about a Jeffrey Simmons because he might arguably be the best player on his Tennessee Titans roster, regardless of defense and offense at that defensive tackle position. Look at what he's done throughout his 6 seasons in the league. Last year, particularly, he had 76 total tackles, 5 sacks, 11 TFLs, 2 fumble recoveries. And in 2023, the season before that, he had 44 total tackles, playing a few less games, playing 12 games, but had 5.5 sacks and 10 TFLs. And then personally, probably his best season from a sack production standpoint in 2021, a couple years before, he had 8.5 sacks, 54 total tackles. And in 2022, he had 7.5 sacks and 54 total tackles. So Jeffrey Simmons, he's shown to be really their most consistent player in his tenure on the defensive line. And I think guys potentially like a Tavondre Sweat at nose tackle going into his second season can help them a lot. He had 51 total tackles last season. Only 1 sack and a forced fumble recovery with 4 TFLs. I think that with this new regime under Brian Callahan, and even one before with Mike Vrabel, as we all know, Mike Vrabel was a defensive-minded head coach. They really emphasized adding personnel on the defense and defensive line overall to help improve so they can eventually, when they have that franchise quarterback, which they have now in a Cam Ward, and has the potential to be great for a long time, be able to help alleviate pressure from that to be able to give their offense short fields and great situations to score. Alongside of that, last year, they signed L'Jarius Sneed from the Kansas City Chiefs, and in his first season last year, he barely got to play. He only played 5 games as he dealt with injuries. But if you look at his tenure with the Kansas City Chiefs, being a 2-time Super Bowl champion, in 2022, he had 108 total tackles, 3.5 sacks, 3 interceptions. I would probably say that's his best season, and even in 2023, he had 78 total tackles and 2 interceptions. I think that a healthy L'Jarius Sneed is going to do wonders for that defense in Tennessee from not only a veteran perspective, but just helping their secondary improve overall. For this 2025 NFL season, the Tennessee Titans have the 4th ranked easiest schedule in the league. That's something that is favorable for them, and a lot of these AFC South teams that I talked about have some pretty favorable schedules, and that helps with the Tennessee Titans revitalize their culture in their second season under Brian Callahan at the head coaching helm. And they do open up with a tough test in week 1 though against the Denver Broncos on the road in Mile High in that altitude in Denver. They're going to be playing against a defense I think has the potential to be the top ranked defense in the NFL, so that's going to be a great test for Cam Ward. We'll see what he's able to do in his first NFL game. But even moving beyond that game in week 2, then they play against the Los Angeles Rams. I know there's been the rumors about Matthew Stafford and all stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure he's going to play, and that's just part of him getting older, not necessarily needing to take all the reps in training camp, things of that nature with that back. So I think that that'll be a tough game. Then they have their first divisional game, their second home game in week 3 against the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, they were swept by the Colts last season, so if you were to say that the Colts sweep them again, I wouldn't necessarily deny that possibility, but I will say that Daniel Jones starting quarterback doesn't convince me the type of success that the Colts can potentially have this year. So I actually would probably say in a season series between the Colts and the Titans that the Titans and Colts will probably split it, but that's just my personal opinion. But let's move forward past that, because in week 4, they're going to Houston on the road, playing against the back-to-back AFC South champions for 2023 and 2024. I think that'll be a great test for Cam Ward against that defense too, that similarly like to the Denver Broncos has the potential to be the best defense in the league. Cam Ward is going to be on full display to show why he could potentially already be the second best quarterback in the AFC South and have a great rivalry between him and CJ Stroud for years to come in that division. And last year, even on the road, only being 3-14 last season, the Tennessee Titans actually won in Houston last season. So I think that's something that the Titans are going to be trying to do again and replicate, and we'll see what they're able to do there. But then they play against the Cardinals in week 5. Tough game there against that defense, and that team in Arizona has playoff potential. Week 6, they play against the Las Vegas Raiders, against that really new retooled team under a Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, Ashton Genty, weapons of that nature. Week 7, they play against the New England Patriots, against their former head coach and Mike Vrabel, former head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Vrabes will definitely be wanting to win that game against Tennessee, so that'll be an intriguing game in Tennessee as well. Then week 8, they play the Indianapolis Colts for a second time. They play the Chargers in week 9, right before their bye week. That happens in week 10, and then for a second time in week 11, they'll play against the Houston Texans. The Seahawks in week 12, Jags in week 13. I think that it wouldn't be crazy to say that out of all their divisional matchups between the Colts, the Jaguars, and the Texans, if they're able to split those games, which I think is possible, that's improvement, because last season the Titans were 1-5 in AFC South, and like I mentioned, not only win was against the Houston Texans, but also look at this though, check this out. And when they beat the Texans on the road for the lone divisional win, they won that game 32-27, and then when they lost in week 18 against the Texans, I know a lot of people were being rested and stuff like that, Texans side being prepared for the playoffs, but they only lost that game 23-14. So we'll see what Titans are able to do in their division, because that'll say a lot for their success as well too. But like I said, if they can be 3-3 and split every game in their division too, that'll be improvement for them for sure, because 1-5 is absolutely atrocious. But moving on past that though, week 13 they play against the Jaguars, week 14 against the Browns, week 15 the San Francisco 49ers. That's a tough stretch back to back playing against the 49ers, then in week 16 playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. Then their final 2 games take place between the New Orleans Saints and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Depending on how things go, those could end up being 2 wins in their final 2 games in the season against the Saints and Jaguars. So like I said, a favorable schedule, definitely. They're playing against 5 teams that made the playoffs in the 2024 season, but looking at the schedule in its totality, I think that they're going to overall be playing against 9 teams that had the potential to make the playoffs. So really, you can make the argument that schedule could be a little bit more difficult than it seems. But for the Tennessee Titans this season, I think that they'll be an improved football team, similarly to like what I've talked about with the Indianapolis Colts in the last video with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I would still say like a team like the Jaguars and Colts are a little bit ahead of this team. I think it's reasonable to expect the Tennessee Titans to have a 7-10 record this upcoming season. And I think in 2026, it may be more reasonable to talk about them being a potential playoff team. I still think that they're a little bit ways away to being a team that can fully compete But we will see. Like I said, what Jaden Daniels did last year, no one expected them to be not only 12-5 but make the NFC Championship game, that close to the Super Bowl, him having the type of season that he had. And with me saying that the Titans will probably be a 7-10 team, maybe 8-9, that doesn't mean that he can't win Offensive Rookie of the Year, which I think he's poised to do, even though you could probably talk about rookies like Amarion Hampton, Ashton Genty, players of that nature, Emeka Ibuka, maybe even Tedero McMillan winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. But Cam Ward being at that quarterback position, that's a position that obviously has an advantage of winning that award just in terms of the responsibility that the quarterback has. I think the Titans, they are in arguably the worst division in the NFL, which helps them, but they were 3-14 last year. So to say that they can just sneak into playoff contention, I think that might be a little bit rash to say. But with that being said, though, I wouldn't be surprised if they're close and in the hunt, having an 8-9 record or being 7-10. But right now, after recording this video, I think they're going to win 7 to 8 games and just be a little bit far off. But success isn't always linear in this league, guys. I mean, if you go from being 3-14 and winning 7 or 8 games in the next season, and then the following season after that winning 10 or 11, that's improvement. It's not going to be, oh, we're trash this year and then we're Super Bowl contenders the next. I mean, sometimes it works like that in the NFL. Sometimes rebuilds happen very quickly in the NFL. I've recognized throughout my 23 years being alive, watching both leagues intricately like the NBA and NFL, I've realized that in a lot of cases, teams in the NFL, their rebuilds actually happen a lot faster and contenders end up being built quicker. But for the Tennessee Titans this year, I just can't see them being in the playoffs yet, but they'll be close. And I think that Cam Ward has the potential to be the next great rookie quarterback and great quarterback overall for this Tennessee Titans franchise that has been searching for one for over a decade plus. But y'all let me know in the comments down below what you think. Do you think that the Titans are close and could sneak into playoff contention for the 2025 NFL season? Like I said, I think they'll definitely be better than the 3-14 record that they had last year. But I think they're a season away from being in playoff contention. But y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. That's a wrap for the AFC South. Now we're moving on to the NFC North, where we'll be starting off things with the Detroit Lions. So stay tuned for that. This is the NFC North. You can make the argument that it's the best division in football. So I'm intrigued to talk about that division for sure and get into the stretch run of the series because we're almost done. This series has been phenomenal and I'm looking forward to talking about these final 2 divisions as well. So y'all stay tuned, most definitely. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications. Like I said, follow me on Instagram / Twitter and X at SwaggyRuss and TikTok at SwaggyRuss02. Let's talk about anything, guys. Know that I'm here for you guys always, and know more importantly that Jesus Christ is there for you always, guys. And like I said, stay tuned for a lot more content, guys. Y'all keep being blessed. Know that you matter. You have great purpose. God has so many great things for you. Love you always. And yeah, y'all have a good one and keep being blessed and legendary. Peace.